Welcome out, another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, Angel One. Yeah, it sounds like either a serious network show or a network, serious network channel. Jeez, 2019. That's radio now. Anyway, be an angel for us. Go to patreon.com/IABD. Support not only It's All Been Checked Before, but also the entire IABD oeuvre. I think I'm saying that right. Do that and be an angel to us. But right now, check it out, Angel One.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Keith.
And Jimmy-Jerome. And because there are no women here to allow us to speak, then I guess this is all the podcasts we can record.
Yes, sir.
We're here to talk the Next Generation episode, Angel 1, First Impressions.
It was. I had fun watching it. It was far from perfect. A lot going on. A very mishy-mashy episode, but not necessarily in a bad way. We'll get into some of the bad, and we'll get into the good. But yeah.
What about the geeky? Are we getting into that too?
Yeah, I think we're already there. I think you already introed the name of the podcast. So.
I agree. I mean, that was really. I thought that I would have remembered this, but I didn't. So perhaps I hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of some original series episodes or whatever with beautiful women on a planet and how much I typically dislike those episodes.
Yeah.
But this one wasn't bad. I enjoyed this one.
This one was better than
this one was much better. Yeah. It did feel like an original series episode in a lot of ways.
Yes.
The threats like pushing the time urgency while Riker, same guy, is down there seducing the leader of the women.
Yep. Which are elements that I enjoy.
So, right, and I typically don't.
Right. So.
I think it was a mutual seduction. Honestly.
Yeah, I thought so.
It was,
yeah.
and that's part of why I liked it better.
Yeah.
I mean, this was written by Patrick Barry. This was the only episode of Star Trek that he wrote. He only has a few credits, other writing credits. So it was directed by Michael Ray Rhodes, who we had mentioned there was some very interesting direction in this episode. Some really fun cutaways going from like talking about smell to a bottle of perfume, or what was the second one?
Oh, the two of them in bed, and then it cuts to a fire.
Yeah.
Rather than, like I said, a space train entering a space tunnel.
And it's too bad this was the only episode he directs for The Next Generation.
That is a bummer.
Of any Star Trek, it looks like. Yeah, and also there were several under the chin shots on the bridge where you got to see that skylight dome really well.
Oh, yeah.
Which is something the original series supposedly had, but we never really saw it. And I guess they could show it in this set, which was nice.
Huh.
So let's get into the story here.
I have at the top, they did a lazy "make it so" at the top of the episode from Picard. But I was like, oh, this is kind of a throwaway. I guess it's for the catchphrase. But later on, they came back because Geordi took over captain duties and had to actually toss that out there as a.
Wanted to remind you that it was Picard's catchphrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also just like sort of like a passing of the torch of the, wow, I'm in this position. I guess I have to act like a captain. Make it so. Yeah.
We'll get to Geordi in a minute here with his takeover, but from the beginning of the episode, they start talking about the planet and the mistresses that rule it, which I thought was interesting. That's the term they used.
Shouldn't it be maestresses or mastresses or something?
Mistress-I?
Yeah, something, right?
No, I just thought it was...
Now I have this. I have the sickness. Archer, get down here. Give me a shot.
Yeah, but it's got that automatic sexual connotation to it as well. And this was a very sexualized episode.
Yeah.
I like that Troy was immediately like, hey, they sound a lot like my planet. Which, of course, just got Riker all excited.
Right. And then Picard's like, well, maybe you should do the talking. It's like, yeah.
Seems like a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Worf jumped in with Klingons appreciate strong women.
Yeah, that was just kind of like, hey, can everyone weigh in on what's going on here so we learn a little more about your characters and what you think of women?
Well, I mean, so we now have seen in Star Trek Discovery that the Klingons had a female chancellor 100 years before this.
Sure.
So they've had female leadership for a long time.
And that just all reinforced that, as we learned long ago, gender is binary throughout the universe.
Yeah, they didn't get into how the transgendered or non-binary gendered...
it's binary. There's no arguing this. It's been established.
Yeah.
I think they just forgot.
Small-mindedness of the 1980s.
Yep.
They haven't gotten over it yet.
And big-hairedness. I'm jumping to fashion. I shouldn't, but I just did.
Go for it.
Fashion.
Very 80s hair.
Very. My first thing I wrote was the planet of 80s hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of it. And then, Will's snow gear, or not Will, Wesley's snow gear, I should say, made me laugh. Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty ridiculous.
It was. And maybe that was the idea, because the whole planet thing was the whole, for lack of a better term, gender reversal kind of thing. I actually like the men's. I'm guessing Bill Teese is still doing the.
I think so.
Kudos. I liked him. If I could wear that to a Halloween costume, have anyone recognize it, I would wear that. And doesn't Riker say this is pretty comfortable?
He does.
Yeah.
Okay, so the things were these tunics that all the men had to wear.
Yes. And expose their left nipple.
Yeah, with a deep
neckline.
Yeah, with a deep plunging V that was sort of.
They just watched the episode, Keith.
Okay.
And full disclosure, Keith and I initially, when we saw them, thought they might be women with that kind of cleavage. Which, if that was the case, Bill Teese, hats off to you. But that wasn't the case.
No, but it looked like tunics that had been worn by people in the original series.
It did.
And then the women had a different variation of a business suit, I guess. It was much formal, much more covering.
It looks like what the men usually wear. It actually, their outfits look very Quark. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, Quark was nominated for an Emmy for Best Costuming. But
the science fiction television. Science fiction television. Not the Deep Space Nine character.
Yes, go back and listen to our episode on that. But so overall, I thought the fashion on the planet was okay, but I like what they had Riker wear. And kudos to Trent, the assistant or whatever. He was in shape, and it very much complimented him.
Well, I mean, this was the leader of the planet that he was serving.
So
she's getting the best.
She got grade A.
You go down to the grocery store, all the men don't look like that.
And while we're there,
Keith the Jimmy-Jeromes of that world are at the grocery store.
I'll give the episode credit for this too, because Keith and I thought I was going to go down the road of Trent loved the elected one. And they didn't. They didn't go there, and I actually that's kind of refreshing.
Yes. Also about the outfits, the curious thing about the way that they're all cut. So it was just slanted just so it would expose mostly like the left breast for some reason. And Steven had reasoning for that.
It's where the heart is, the left nipple. Yeah. And we did actually have a conversation, and maybe you can play this game if you watched it or want to go back and watch. Finding Riker's nipple.
It was there. It was just well in the hair.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the hair was cut differently when he's back in the room talking to the women.
Just brushed differently.
There was like a circle, like an exposed circle, like where it was missing the hair.
I guess that makes sense. But I was wondering if they were like, let's not let his nipples show.
Yeah, that looks a little.
Because they had no problem with Trent's, but he was shaved and everything.
And they had no problem with Patrick Stewart's nipples later.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, so I wonder why.
It drew the eye to that little awkward circle. Cut out of it. It was like, what? Okay.
Franks had already filmed the other scenes, and he's like, guys, we gotta show off my nipples. Here we go. Let me brush it.
I feel like this is the hairiest chest we've seen on Star Trek so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shatner was always smooth.
Yeah, Nimoy was too, I think.
Huh.
Yeah, Shatner was always.
Was that the style in the 60s, or was it just them?
I feel like it can't
maybe
have
a little
been.
Both.
Because I think in the 80s, hair started to come back a bit.
Yeah. Fortunately, most of the women I've dated, I'm like, I love a hairy chest. Maybe they're just telling me that, but. And I've shaved it a couple times and immediately regretted it.
Like Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld reference.
For the itching, yeah, this is like for the itching, and then for the that doesn't look like I thought it would. I need the hair for the contouring.
I will say we're talking about how a lot of the fashion looked very 80s in this episode.
Which makes sense.
It also looked like Star Trek in the 60s.
It did.
So I guess Bill Thies just had some great foresight in the 60s.
Probably.
Yeah, which reminds me, I was listening to a Star Wars Minute podcast today, and they were talking about how some of the tease outfits in the 60s looked just weird on the women, which I disagree, but they didn't necessarily look functional, but they looked amazing. I would put his 60s costumes up against any of the Star Wars costumes. This was in a conversation about Attack of the Clones and all of Natalie Portman's outfits and that, which I think are great. So anyway, sorry. So I think that was all my fashion. I have a little bit of fashion, but I'll get into that much later.
I am curious of these furs and feathers Riker previously worn.
Yeah, I like that too. That little allusion to, I've done this kind of stuff before. And I know, and I love that was kind of the part of like, you're going to wear that? It was that might have been my favorite gendery swap of the episode, where the women are like, "You gonna wear that? No, oh, look at you, woo woo woo," kind of thing.
The giggling. And
Very,
stuff. It was almost like they were jealous at first, but then the giggling seemed to indicate they weren't jealous.
Yeah, I couldn't tell, but I felt like their reaction.
Maybe their reaction was like being offended on behalf of feminists and like, just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there was enough that they weren't real happy that he was getting with who I call Space Tatum O'Neal.
Something just clicked into place for me. I think it's the implied sexual element of it. Riker brought up the precedent of, I've done this for other male dignitaries. I've worn more ridiculous looking things than this. But I think her first objection was, maybe this is like a conflict of interest. Maybe this is weird that you're being subservient in this way. But
I think Riker had the right intentions, and I don't think he was going down there for sex, even though he did turn it away when it was offered. I mean, they didn't actually get to sleep together, but
well, I guess
they just enjoyed a fire.
This raises the question of, and Kirk's ethics have been attacked many a time. Maybe you cuts both ways. Does it matter if it's serving the mission? It's okay, but even if it isn't, is it okay?
I think as long as you're not disrespecting Starfleet rules, you're not taking advantage of anybody with a mismatched power. Yeah. And I don't think any of that was present here. It felt like two people on a similar level. If anything, she was higher ranked, but he was totally into it, and he didn't feel forced. Like, I don't think the captain could order him to do that, but if he's into it.
Yeah, well, like, I'm thinking of the Romulan incident because, or was it the Enterprise incident?
The Enterprise incident.
Enterprise incident, when Kirk goes and seduces Joanne Linville, or then Spock does, or whatever. I'm guessing part of the mission was to get her trust, and he was like, "Well, this will work." Sure. So he probably wasn't explicitly ordered by Starfleet to sleep with her.
A little less oversight back then.
Yeah, he probably wasn't expressly told to sleep with her, but he was probably like, "This will get the job done, and why not?"
Well, it's like James Bond. He's not told specifically he has to sleep with those women. He just does it to accomplish his ends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Well, I just thought of something else. Remember Yar from the previous episodes?
Yar.
Yeah. With the tribal culture, whatever that was.
Code of honor.
Yes, essentially being given a similar sort of thing. Like, this leader wants you to come here and dress up like this. So it is kind of a demeaning and awkward kind of thing to be demanded or to acquiesce to a leader in that way. So I think she was kind of thinking...
Yeah, but I don't think Beata, I don't think she demanded it. I think she just requested, and Riker said,
"Yeah,
sure." Yeah. It wasn't presented as, you can only meet me if you dress like this.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that it was inappropriate of him to accept, but I can see why she would think of it as being something similar. Like,
I see.
Why are you letting her tell you what to do, or why are you letting her do that kind of...
Yeah.
I'm going to skip the notes that go to the other side plots for now, and we'll just concentrate on the away team stuff. The away team, I thought we got a rare insight of them being smart.
Oh, yeah.
When Beata was, like, cagey, and they're like, oh, well, that clearly means they're here. I feel like in other Star Trek, they would have been like, something's weird, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, not just that, it's their response on how to handle it wasn't to be ham-fisted and start making demands and go, we know you have them. Why are you lying to us? Blah, blah, blah. And they were just like, let's think about this for a bit.
Yeah.
Just
difference between Kirk and Riker.
Yeah, it was a good landing crew.
Although then Data was just dumb, because how does he not know what perfume is or the connection of sex to smells to sex?
Yeah,
that felt too much of a stretch.
Well, and we talked about how right off the bat they're like, "Oh, this world's like yours, Deanna," and then.
I was just saying, I think that it was just the way that it was written to be comedic, just made it. They weren't really explaining it very well, honestly. So it was like it didn't make sense what they were saying.
Because really, I thought perfume was just because everyone stank, so they
there was certainly
Isn't that the original reason?
Yeah, there's all kinds of reasons for that.
But I thought the episode was very, because you talked about right off the top. It's like, oh, this is like your world, Deanna. So like right off the bat, it's like, oh, it's a planet of women. So just so everyone knows, this is going to be a sex episode.
Yeah.
So then when they get the perfume, they're like, oh, it's an aphrodisiac. Sure. And the whole crew is like, can we talk to you about this, Data? Like, it's one horny away crew.
Yeah.
They were ready to go.
So when we were talking about the sex stuff, I'd say the worst line for me was Riker asking, "Will you still respect me in the morning?"
I-
which was such a cliche at that
that's
point.
why
of
I
women to
enjoyed
ask
it.
the same
Exactly,
thing, right?
which-
It was the role reversal,
Yeah, it
and maybe
was.
it's just the 2019 sensibility looking back,
Yeah.
because that line seems so wrong now when you hear it out of the mouth of a woman.
It
that
does,
I guess it felt
I
it was
enjoyed it.
groan worthy to me.
I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Prime Directive here,
Yeah.
because
Mm,
it
yeah.
was once again confusing. They said they were the equivalent of a 20th century species.
Yeah.
So they did have warp.
Real quick on that, sorry.
Yeah.
Why can't, and I know I beat this drum every episode of this podcast, why can't we compare a planet to the history of some other planet besides Earth?
Well, because our starship's led by Earth.
I get that,
Starfleet is
but
primarily an Earth organization.
yeah,
And
which
most
gets
people
to
serving.
not every planet evolves the same either. So that should be like, oh, this is like alter. Also, while we're at it, do you think the people on Angel One call it Angel One?
Well, they did.
Yeah,
They did call
why
it
would
that.
they do that? That doesn't make sense, does it?
I don't know. We don't know why they call it
Yeah,
that. It might make sense if they explain it.
Because
but we have no
it
idea.
just made me think of SETI Alpha 5 and 6
Right.
and
Yeah.
all those naming conventions.
But wouldn't normally be the first planet closest to the sun that would have life? So that's maybe the Angel One wasn't like
that
its
makes
position.
sense.
Whereas
Yeah.
like SETI Alpha, they're numbering them away from the sun because there's no intelligent life there. So they're just like default. Like if they were mapping this solar system and there was no life,
I
they'd
guess
be
you're
like,
right. And then
you know,
whoever
Sol 1, Sol 2, Earth would be Sol
then
3.
whoever lives there would decide, oh,
Right.
this is Dim Nibis or whatever they
Yeah.
would call it. Okay.
And so
That
I
makes
guess Angel One, I feel like they're. I mean, I'm just gonna make excuses now, but I feel like there should be some explanation in canon of.
Well, maybe they were
But-
colonists from a long time ago, and they landed on
Didn't
the
seem
planet.
like it.
I remember I can't remember what the explanation was of how their society came about, but they made it sound as if it changed into that from something else.
Really, I got the impression they just evolved that way, with
Right.
the women being more dominant than the man. Which on Earth, several cultures evolved under matriarchal rule. It just they got overrun by the patriarchal rule.
That's fair. All right, sorry. Back to.
But I'm saying they could have originally been Earth colonists from way back
It
whenever.
doesn't sound like, because they don't have warp drive or anything. They don't have that advancement, and that brings me back to our discussion of the Prime
Oh,
Directive.
Yeah.
okay.
Because the way I understand the Prime Directive and the way it kind of solidifies later is if they don't have warp capabilities, you're not supposed to let them know that you're from another planet.
Right.
So the only way I guess you could get around that is if maybe some other alien race had stopped here first, and then they're like, well, they already know aliens, so we can talk to them. But
I mean, we saw their death machine. I mean, that seemed pretty advanced.
it
I
did,
think
but
that,
they said they were equivalent to 20th century. We didn't, and they clearly don't leave the planet, go to other systems, or they'd have
Yeah.
different exposure.
I mean, and
I just thought it was another example of they still haven't locked down what the Prime
yeah,
Directive
no,
is yet.
that's definitely that's fair. I mean,
But I am a
it's-
little tired of everything being 20th century equivalent.
yes,
Yeah.
and their execution device didn't seem 20th century though.
That's what I'm saying.
Slightly more, yeah.
Yeah, advanced.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
feels like there's some leeway maybe between, but that shouldn't be the case. There should be like a hard and fast, this
Oh.
is that, right? So I don't know.
so we get the Ramsey and company, the freighters, refusing to leave, but then why were they packing? Did he just say they were packing to
Yeah.
distract?
Well, I think they were packing to go to a different hiding spot because
Oh,
they knew they were burnt from
Okay.
the tip
That makes
off.
sense. Then I don't have any more notes about the plant thing until they actually get to the execution. Do you have any
The what thing?
the plot line of
Oh.
what was happening on Angel One?
Well, I was saying
I probably
that-
do, but
Oh,
just to go back to the elected, you guys were talking about how the landing party recognized that she was being cagey.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote the elected one pretty much buried the lead about these guys. It's like, why didn't you just tell us that when we landed? And then even when she's telling them, she's going through this long story, and I know it's exposition time, but it was just like, you could have led with that, and we could have got to hear a lot sooner. But
well, I mean, she said she still suspected, or she was suspicious of their motives. They might have been there to help them overthrow or something.
I guess
but
that makes sense because they were kind of.
the last thing I had about that really was I put in Ramsey's obstinance. It just seemed like a forced plot device. Like, why wouldn't he just want to leave? I mean, what does he have there to do? Does he want to
My guess
cause
is
an uprising?
my guess is Ariel didn't want to leave. Ariel.
Yeah, that has to be it because if he could just leave with his family and the women,
Yeah.
not listen to me, the women,
The women.
his loved ones.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they leave?
I would think the natives of the planet were the ones that were
Yeah.
left to leave, and the colonists were just standing by them.
I guess
the freighter
that
group.
makes sense.
But the evolution was already happening, which I will give credit to Riker for a very Kirky speech.
That was a great speech.
It was a very Kirk speech.
Although, Perhaps we can't prevent evolution. We're just going to slow it to a slow crawl.
Yeah.
Like, woman, is that really the way you want to put that?
That's
That doesn't sound positive.
I feel like that's the way we've been operating since for a while on the planet.
No, right now they're trying to reverse us.
We're
But I'm not sure
rolling
that's
back.
something to like praise her for.
Oh
or be
no, it
proud
isn't.
of.
No, it isn't.
Like, let's slow down.
No, it isn't.
But they act like she came to some like great decision. And
No,
I get
right.
that it spared their lives, but
Right.
it still felt like
She didn't come to the worst decision, but she didn't come to the best decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
right. But
Yes.
she acted like she came to the best.
Oh,
And
well, yeah.
That's the
Oh,
problem.
well, yeah, of course she did.
Or Ramsey came to the worst decision of we're not going to execute you, but I'm just going to stand in this machine.
That was.
Because I trust Trent not to get an itchy trigger finger.
It made no sense. It made zero sense.
If they had played Trent a little differently with more of the jealousy card or whatever, I could see him slapping his hand on that.
Right.
and killing him.
That would have been funny.
I thought for a minute we were going to see him die.
Do you think when
Yeah.
somebody's in the electric chair and they get the call from the governor to the mid 11:58 pardon, do you think they sit there like, oh, that's awesome? Oh, I gotta tell you, I thought this was gonna be it. No, they're like, get me out of this chair now.
I think they were playing up the martyrdom thing, though. He seemed
Oh,
to be
yeah.
prepared to.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, get your hands off me. I'm going to walk to the machine myself. I'm ready to die. I'm doing this for a great cause. Yeah.
Ideals. Let's briefly talk about the guest stars. That we
I
had
think he
down
also
below.
thought like, man, if I don't die, I'm gonna score so many points for my girl. With this.
So we had
He's just milking it.
we had 4 primary guest stars on the planet. Bieda was played by Karen Montgomery, who died in 2015, so she's
Oh.
nothing now.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Boo.
She's best known for this episode of Star Trek.
Okay.
She has 10 credits. After this, she did an episode of LA Law in the 90s, and that's her
Wow.
last credit.
Oh wow.
So she had a few credits in the 70s and early 80s, starting with
Bummer.
an episode of Kojak, but
Yeah.
she didn't stick around. Then we had Sam Hennings, who played Ramsey. He's best known for the
MacGyver.
movie The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio.
He looked familiar, but does he have that many credits?
85.
All right.
I don't see anything like real notable, except he was one of the stars of the television series Memphis Speed on TNT with Jason Lee. It ran like 2 seasons.
Okay.
Back in like 10 years ago. That's his most notable thing I see. Patricia McPherson played Ariel. She's best known for playing Bonnie on Knight Rider for 4 years.
Oh.
Is that who that was?
Yep.
I was just gonna ask if
Huh.
I recognize McPherson. Okay.
She also did an episode of Warehouse 13. She did-
Oh.
I had a friend who, when
That was
Knight
a
Rider
bad
came
girl.
out in 5th grade or whatever, Patricia McPherson was his girl.
Bonnie Barstow.
He was in love with her.
That is what she's best known for.
Okay.
I would imagine.
And she just always wore like jumpsuits with the zipper down, so it looked like she wasn't wearing anything underneath it.
She was uncredited as Tommy Lee Jones' spouse in the movie Men in Black.
Oh.
Well, I assume it was his spouse because it says spouse K. Uncredited.
Is she still performing?
No, but she's not dead.
Okay, that's
Her last credit was a guest spot on Warehouse 13 in 2009.
okay.
And the last one before that was 10 years earlier. So.
I used to love that show, by the way.
Oh, Warehouse 13?
Yeah.
I watched it all. I don't think I'd watch it today if it came out, but I watched it all in the day, back in the day. And then Leonard Crowfoot played Trent. This is what he's second best known for. Looks like he's mainly not mainly. He's got 1 stuntman credit for 6 Feet Under. He's got 10 acting credits. He will actually play the body of Lal, Mannequin, in a upcoming episode of Star Trek Next Generation, if you're familiar with who Lal is.
Not right now.
Okay. We'll talk about when we get to that episode then, because that's like 2 years away.
He was a stunt person on 6 Feet Under?
In 1 episode.
Wait, 2 years like our time?
Next Generation. 2 years in Next Generation
Okay,
time. So like 1 year in our time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he also did an
That still
episode
seems like
of
a lot.
Star Trek Voyager.
Okay.
But yeah, he only has 10 credits, so he's not.
Huh.
No, I'd say the most notable was Ariel, but
Yeah.
she didn't have
So-
a ton to do in this.
Sorry, to go back to the depressing part. How old was Beatrice?
Karen Montgomery,
Yeah.
Beata, when she died,
Yeah.
66.
Oh, that's right. She just died. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 66 still isn't very old.
All right.
No.
Yeah.
Does not say on Wikipedia how she died. So,
Must have been something bad.
but she was a model before she was an actress.
Okay.
Yep. So let's go to the Enterprise. Wesley and that snowball fight. That was bad.
Right off the bat, I was like, I can already tell you this is the most annoyed I've been at Wesley by far.
Yeah.
Well, it was that that thing where once they ran into the holodeck, they bent down and picked up snowballs immediately, and
That-
were acting very childish.
That was terrible.
It was real terrible. And then the next time we see him, he's hitting Picard with a snowball.
Yeah.
And that was, again, we could talk about the holodeck technology.
I was gonna, yeah.
I guess it was a fully replicated snowball, so
Sure.
it survived outside the holodeck.
Yeah.
But
He was like, Will Wheaton, I felt like it was just like, this is so stupid. I'm so high. Like, he seemed so giddy about it. Like, yeah. I was just right off the bat. I'm like, oh, this is why people get annoyed with him.
well, in this episode, he acted like he was 8 instead of 16.
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
the annoying
Yes.
part.
Yeah. It was very regressive for him.
Now, I do want to know how this illness came about. Like, the holodeck safety protocols should have been...
We've talked about this. They need to shut that thing down. Shut it down.
Well, you know...
Shut it
You
down.
know it's because Riker was in there right before he beamed down with those heart girls.
God.
Well, and I noticed, and I mentioned to Keith that, when Riker gets sick, you heard a little ding, 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 ding. I'm like,
Picard.
sorry, what did I say? Riker.
Yeah.
Picard, sorry,
Yeah.
Picard. It's like, how does he not know he's sick? Can he hear that musical thing? It was
weird symptoms.
It
of
was a
viruses.
variation on the naked time, the naked now
Yeah.
sickness, but it was like,
Thankfully, they didn't keep that going the whole episode.
no,
Just that one
yes,
bit.
thank God.
I did think it felt almost too ridiculous that we had both the illness and the neutral zone plot going on at the same time.
They were just like, let's just throw something else. They should have had like a comet coming at them too. They had to get, I was like, why? We don't
You
need
have to move
more.
the ship 10 feet to
We
the left.
don't need more. It's
But
like,
we're waiting till right before, and then there's nobody on the bridge to do it.
yeah, it's like, so Riker's like, well, we have an appointment with the Romulan battle cruisers. It sounded like they were like, hey, can you do 2 o'clock? I can't do. Can we push that to 3? 3. Okay. All right. We will meet up with you at 3. All right. We have an appointment with the Romulan battle cruisers at 3 next Tuesday.
Well, I have calculated we can actually come at 4:53.
Right. And to me, this is another. And I know I beat the Romulan drum. I love the Romulans. This is another instance where it's like, oh, the Romulans, we got to take care of this. And then we never see them. We never see a ship. We never see nothing.
Right,
It's
yeah.
just a waste.
We haven't seen him in Next Gen yet.
Why not just why not just say the freaking body insert over
Probably
there?
because
Cause a ruckus.
when you say Romulans, it evokes an
Oh, yeah, so
immediate
it's like, oh
image
my
in your
God,
head.
oh. Yeah,
Right.
It does,
If
but
you make up
it's-
another alien race, it doesn't have that immediate... Like,
Yeah.
Star Trek fans are like, oh, Romulans.
Yeah, I was like,
Or if you say they're freaking bodies or whatever, they're like, who? What? I don't know.
of course,
Why do I care?
and for whatever reason, I knew immediately, like, I'm not going to see Joanne Linville on that other ship.
No.
Or even another Joanne Linville knockoff. But yeah, I did not like,
Yeah, the artificial threat in the time. I guess the illness doesn't really matter, except that they had to go into battle.
yeah.
But then it also made it so they couldn't beam up.
Yeah.
Well, there was that too.
Which, like, why not just beam them up but keep them in stasis, like in the shuttle bay, separated?
Well, that's what I said. Don't they
Isolation?
have hazmat? They all should have hazmat astronaut suits. Don't they? I mean, they all go on planets where the atmosphere is not good. I mean, TOS had astronaut, quote unquote astronaut suits. Why would they not have something
They
like
rarely use
everybody
either, so.
getting one of these? That's the way we're operating this.
Well, and
that
also-
should be a standard thing in space.
Or just beam these new refugees to the shuttle bay where there's nobody that's been sick yet.
Right,
And
right.
cordon them off.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, and nobody had died from this virus yet. No fatalities. Right. Well, because you got the impression that they might if she didn't
Right,
cure it soon.
right.
But nobody had died yet. Whereas if you leave them on the planet, they're getting certain execution. So why don't you buy them a couple of days and keep them
that's
up?
what I said. It was like a
If you
very
think it's sick.
when she's like, I can't have that happen, and he's like, well, they're gonna die. He's like, well, they might die here. I was like, that's a false equivalency. Down there, it's a
okay.
very high
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
Up there, you don't even know what you're dealing with for being such a great doctor. Can I speak to one of the men doctors?
Oh.
I mean, it was just so like, it was just like, there's got to be somebody else.
Well, and the thing is, like, if they beam them
Bring
up,
it full circle.
if they beam them up and then the flu threatens their life, things are already so much worse than, like, by the time they're threatened,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
half the crew's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So things are already way worse. I mean, I feel like if this was a real series episode, we would have seen a couple crewmen die.
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah.
speed it up.
Exactly.
Urgency.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It just seemed like they all had the flu, and
If
A
even
really
that.
bad flu.
really bad.
Because
And,
Picard's voice. is
and
like-
I am glad they didn't. Cause Keith and I talked about this too. Didn't say, "Oh, the common cold came back." It's like, "Oh no, you kept telling us it was cured."
That would have been funny.
But the line that I thought was weird was Crusher was like, "There's more people sick than I have beds for." It's like every time we see sick bay, there's like 7 or 8 beds. And then she's like, yeah, there's 300. I'm like, okay, well, you have 300 more people, more essentially, than you have beds.
We'll just keep them to their quarters because those are all beds.
Yeah.
And we don't need to.
That's right.
There's beds for everybody on the ship.
And also, if you're keeping everyone quarantined, we are suspending the open door policy on the ship for the duration of this quarantine.
Please knock first.
So, except if Crusher's going to go visit the captain, then obviously just go in.
Yep.
And this continues her seduction of the captain.
Yeah.
And also, is this the third episode that she has relieved Picard from command or threatened to relieve Picard
That
from
and
command? It's
she
becoming like Janice Rand being sexually assaulted. It just
she
keeps
went
happening.
there so quick. She
So
wasn't
quick.
even like, well, if you get worse, I'm gonna have to. She was like, I'm in charge. You're going to
You
go
got
to
the
bed.
flu. You can't possibly stay in command.
Right.
So, and this was a little bit odd to me too. So that leaves LaForge in charge. LaForge is a junior officer. He's like Chekhov in season 3 of original series,
Wait,
and he's already 6th in command.
He called him commander.
No,
Yeah.
lieutenant. And he's actually lieutenant junior grade. He's not even a full lieutenant yet.
Who else would there be though?
So in the original series, they just kept putting Scotty in charge. So you'd think Chief Argyle would come up from engineering.
Oh.
I mean, I understand why Crusher, even though she's a full commander, isn't taking over because she has other things to worry about.
Right.
But realistically, you beam Data back. He's your 3rd in command. Riker's handling this mission. Data comes back and runs the ship, which eventually they did. But I feel like they should have done it a lot sooner rather than grab this lieutenant junior grade who's still...
Who could be sick, and he's second now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, so
and he's a junior officer.
Why did they
and there had to be other higher ranked officers that could step in.
Why
That's
did
what
they
I'm
let
saying.
Worf stay up there when he was already Klingon sneezing?
Well, was that an enhanced sound effect too?
Yeah,
It sounded
because
like-
I appreciated that they cut away every time because it made it at least a little bit like, okay, I can believe it because you're not showing me him doing it. One more thing on the sickness while we're there. 24th century, we haven't come up with medicine that tastes good.
No.
Come on, or just give me the air shot. Don't give me 24th century castor oil.
Well, that wasn't medicine. That was just her homemade soup. She can't cook.
In my mind, that was in my mind, to go back to your thing of her seducing and putting the moves on him. It was like misery. She's like, drink this, you'll feel better.
Oh, no.
And it was just to kind of put him in like a twilight zone. Where he was awake, but he couldn't move.
I mean, it's a surprise that she didn't cure the whole ship, but she's still going back to Picard's quarters. Haven't figured it out yet. I'm just gonna keep nursing you.
And again,
and then she's telling Riker the hallway can't go in there. You can't go.
And again, why would she be in gloves and like maybe not an astronaut outfit, but a beekeeper outfit?
She's immune to everything. She's already immune.
Maybe just like one of those like surgical masks or something.
Yeah,
Just
something.
I did think Picard was a little too hoarse at the end. Like,
Yeah.
I liked that actually.
back
I mean,
on.
it sounded. I put in that it's almost as if they wrote the episode around Patrick Stewart actually being sick.
I thought that too. I
He
did
seemed
too.
more sick after he went back on duty than he did when Crusher relieved him of duty.
Right.
I thought it was weird when Riker said to them, and I can't remember what they said. This is like right after they're down. Data says something about, well, we got to. He's like, well, how are we going to find these guys? And Riker's like, let's not look for problems. I'm like, that's your entire job, is to go through the universe and you're exploring. You're going to find problems and solve them.
Sure.
That's your whole job. Don't tell them not to look, especially you're already in a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Riker was already on that. I'm trying to get with this lady.
Yeah, but I'd say his first problem should be don't beam your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in command down at the same time. Leaving the captain and the junior officers at the top. Just saying.
I think you're right.
I mean, it's what the original series did, except they beamed 1st, 2nd, 3rd
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
left, 4th. I mean, at this point in the series, there's a lot that hasn't been figured out and is
Yeah.
still like waffling.
Yeah.
But I feel like Riker and Data are probably the 2 best defined
I
characters
think you're right.
that have
Yeah.
really settled into
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
I like these 2 a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think whenever I see, I think you're right, because I think whenever they're in a scene, I'm like, okay. I mean, I like Picard too, but
Yeah,
but
Patrick Stewart's amazing, but I don't feel like they've settled into the character of Picard yet.
they haven't figured it
Yeah.
out. I think he kind of has, but they haven't.
Yes.
That's-
And so
huh,
then
that's
the
a-
writers
that's a good
give him
way of putting
things
it.
that are off. They haven't started writing to him yet.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I like Deanna Troy. So that's a different thing altogether.
I think if I had to name a 3rd runner-up behind Riker and Data, I think Troy's getting
Certainly.
there.
Yeah.
She's getting there.
Yeah.
Crusher, they clearly don't know what to do with. Yar, they clearly don't know what to do with.
No.
And Geordi and Worf, they don't really know what to do with, but they'll give them a moment or two here and there.
Yeah.
Well, they're light years away from Worf, certainly. I think.
Oh yeah,
Worf's got a ways to go.
Yeah,
Worf's gonna be such
and I
a
think
good
for both of
character.
them, they're like, well, he's the guy who has a visor to see, and he's the Klingon, so they're like, we can get by on this for a while.
I mean, why didn't they just have him run to a window and look for the survivors with his visor? Well, like that previous episode where they couldn't see what was. They told him to go run to the window and look out.
Right.
Do you remember?
I don't. What? No.
There was something in
window?
space. They
Oh,
were
I
having
didn't
trouble.
ca-
They made him
my
run
God.
to the window.
I did not catch that.
This is a complaint we had on the early on TOS all the time, and I think a little bit so far on this one. You've got this planet of, I wrote amazing, but you could say Amazon too because that's the way they're described.
Sure.
And we really only see two. There's some in the background, and we see some later, but it's like
There's only one city. I guess.
what was the episode where
And the refugees just happen to be hiding right near that city.
yeah. What was the episode
The
where
whole planet's
where,
a hide.
where Wesley falls into he breaks the law?
Justice.
Justice, yeah. We saw more amazing women in that episode than we saw in this episode, and I felt like that was a travesty.
This episode did feel like we could only have a couple people that speak. We'll add in a few extras, but we've got to be real careful how many people we have speak.
Yeah, like I felt like
But it could have been a budget thing.
Or even have on screen. Yeah.
right. I felt like Riker.
Well, extras cost budget, not as much as speaking roles, but and later in the episode they had more extras, but at the beginning they didn't.
Okay.
Riker and even Data should have been agog. Like, I cannot believe the women on this planet, and the two women should have been like, even were a little bit intimidated by the women on this planet.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? My last note was just that it was so obvious. It was a very 24 or whatever you want to do. But when Data's like, well, if we do this and this, we still have 48 minutes. It's like, well, we know our time frame, and that's been done in every show, so many shows. But
Funny.
I actually like that it was like,
But at least it wasn't like an even half an hour
Right.
or we have
yeah,
exactly 60 minutes or
Well, by the time they said 48 minutes, we were 2/3 of the way through the episode. So it's not like at the beginning of the episode, which original series is done.
Right.
We have 48 minutes because you know how that's how much time's left in the episode.
yeah. Well, that was my second thought. Was like, oh man, if they started the episode here, they could have done it in real time.
But I want them to. I want them to come back from the commercial break with the 24 Jack Bauer.
That's what I thought.
Time on the screen. I can't do the sound effects of that, but
I love that sound effect.
it's I admit 24 is pure popcorn, but I enjoy every episode of it.
Me too.
I think I stuck with it for 3 seasons, and I loved it.
I watched it all, even the reboots.
Yeah.
Same
Even
here.
the season without Jack Bauer. I've watched it all.
Yep. My last thing is that the Make It So thing at the top made me think of the show Extras. I don't know if you've watched that yet.
Ah.
We should do that episode. The Patrick Stewart episode. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, we could do the Patrick Stewart episode of Extras.
Yeah, that just shows his humor. It was just the way he made
Let
fun
me
of
add it
himself.
to our list of special episodes we have to get around to.
It just kills me. That was pretty much it. I had the pre-DVR era collateral for this episode because it's just, it's a weird kind of feeling to think back to that time and think, I see some of those episodes 2 or 3 times as they're being aired in syndication, like on the spot, and then I feel like I've watched all of them. Maybe I hadn't.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that out.
I guess for the overarching, the whole flipping the gender kind of thing and the way it was talked about, I like it, and I don't know how it would have played in '89, let alone now. Yeah, we get it. It's like, yep, that makes a lot of sense. But it almost feels like this is going to be a bad comparison because not a lot of people saw this movie and it wasn't good. But Shallow Hal was this movie about. So it's about.
I know what it's about, but I chose not to see it.
Yeah. So Jack
I saw
Black.
it, yeah.
I feel like I just had this conversation on another podcast.
You did.
You did on this
Did-
very
on this?
podcast.
Okay, all right. So I can't wait for the Shallow Hal podcast.
That'll be another special episode.
Yeah, but so he meets Tony Robbins and he gets hypnotized or whatever, and so he only sees the inner beauty. Oh, that's right, because we had the woman on the last episode. But I felt like they played it both ways in that because it was like, oh yeah, we should feel, we should see the inner beauty of all these people, but at the same time, I'm looking at beautiful Gwyneth Paltrow, who has probably never looked more beautiful, but she's also supposed to be this other girl. So it was a weird playing it both ways and not coming off perfectly. I felt that way here because it was like, yeah, they're right. This is the way we treated women and treat women, but it still felt weird to be that Riker, the man, was the guy who was like, yeah, this is wrong, and we figured this all out. And I'm going to tell you what's wrong with your planet. It still felt weird, even though it was right.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it still felt like playing it both ways. I still found it interesting, and I still thought it was a very fun episode.
It was the 80s version of feminism.
Yeah, it was just like, and I get where the writer's coming from, I get where Trek's coming from, and it's a very Trek and a very sci-fi thing, but it still feels like that playing it both ways, where it's like, well, we're going to show you what's wrong with men, but you know who's going to point it out? A man.
Okay.
Sure.
Now I see
And men are the persecuted ones in the episode rather than the women.
Yeah.
So it was just...
There's always that argument if you think about it, like the way that they used to do these kinds of episodes. I saw some people arguing on a thread about like X-Men and person of color.
X-people.
Was the point of the allegory that they were bringing up back in the 60s, and some people were arguing about casting of things, and why do they have to put black people and all these other people in these roles now and change these things and blah 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 blah, not really getting the point of what was going on. And the whole point was to force white men at a certain time to listen to these characters because they wouldn't listen to anything else.
Right.
You couldn't put anybody else there to listen to them. So I thought where you were going with the argument was that maybe that's the reason why I hadn't seen that episode, because they didn't replay this one as much back then as the others.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Interesting.
What other notes you got before we do rankings?
That was it.
Alternate episode.
I had two. One was since it was the very end. They're like, well, we gotta go meet those Romulans. So it's Balance of Terror 2. Essentially, they're like, haha, let's go meet the Romulans. And it's like, oh, stuff just got real. And so it's very dramatic. And I hope that's what the next episode is. The other one was, and I think I alluded to this last time when we previewed this or whatever. It's a live action Lorelei signal from the animated series, but it's better written, and the leader is played by Jessica Chastain.
Oh.
By the way, let's do that episode anyway.
My alternate episode is this was a crossover with Gilligan's Island, and the theater crew was actually Marianne and Ginger and Gilligan and the professor. I had to stretch for that one.
That's a good. Well, we've had this Gilligan's Island conversation on this podcast, so that's a good callback too.
Oh, the lunch button, everything. Yes.
I thought you said lunch.
Oh my god! I cannot believe that was a real thing.
Give me a number 1 to 10 for how annoying Wesley was.
This is by far my highest. I'm giving him a 7.
Ooh, that's high.
I was very annoyed.
I'm up in that range. I'm at least a 6. I mean, this is not something I would have expected to. But this really wasn't written for him. I mean, it was just we needed a kid to do something, and also start off a disease, and also do these other things, and just not have any other dimensions to him. So
7, 6. I'm gonna go 5 because he was in the episode so little. Had we had to deal with his childish behavior a lot?
That's a very good
That's
point, too.
fair. I'm going by a per minute annoyance, so he packed a lot of annoyance into a little bit of time. So
this still gives him the highest rank of the series so far with an average of 6.
So just real quick, when they said he was on a field trip, that wasn't the holodeck thing. That was prior to him doing the holodeck thing. Because they said everyone on the field trip, the ones that got infected, that's where the illness came from.
Who was your annoying character this week? Was it Wesley?
Yeah.
Keith?
I guess I'm going to have to do that. I was thinking if it weren't going to be him, it probably would have been the functionary. What's his name? The guy who
Trent?
Yes, Trent. Just the not knocking and the looks and so on. Just It was a nice tease toward a different subplot that didn't actually happen, which is nice. But
I don't want to go with Wesley based on the small screen time, but I can't think of anybody else that annoys me, so we'll just make it Wesley across the board. Yeah. But still, only an average of 6. He's got much further to go.
If there is a 10 episode out there, I am cringing by anticipation of that.
Oh, I hope not. I never found them annoying, so I don't know.
Okay, so maybe that won't happen.
This feels like it would be my 10 if I were going to do like a scale of, possible annoyances, but we'll see.
Okay, men, women, you're still on female con, Steven.
Female con, yeah.
From Haven.
Well, I didn't care for the elected one initially. I didn't like her hair. I was like, but Space Tatum O'Neal grew on me. I like her.
Beata or whatever?
Beata, yeah. She grew on me. I liked her.
Keith, you're at lore.
I was thinking the exact same thing, actually, about Beata. There's something, as the episode went on, There was just something about the delivery, the looks of the camera, something that just kind of...
She was thoughtful about it, and she was in a
Thoughtful.
tough position.
And she was kind of playful.
And she kind of tried to thread the needle.
Yeah.
And normally I don't go for the blonde. When the episode started, I just assumed I'd go for Ariel. But no, I'm going to go with Beata as well. I think she seemed like a well-rounded individual that wasn't unreasonable.
There was one of the, I guess the wives, for lack of a better term, with Ramsey or whatever, that I was like, oh. But no.
Okay.
Didn't work for me.
Where do we want to rank this episode? You had mentioned Justice earlier. Let's start there. Above or below Justice?
Hated it. Number 5.
I think I might have in my head now, I have a lower opinion of Justice than I think when we watched it.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting, isn't it? I mean, I guess they are similar kinds of concepts. And they weren't stingy with the casting in Justice. Mm-hmm. They were just like, let's throw as many bodies in there as we can.
Yeah.
Oh, this was the halfway point. Sorry, there are 25 episodes, and they only count. IMDb only counts the current point as one as well. Okay. So we're halfway. This is the halfway point of the season. I had such a low No, I'm looking at the next one, and it's not one I like. That's what I know that next one's not good. Yeah, I had said maybe it was because I had such low expectations going into this one, but I liked this one. So I would probably put it above Justice.
Was my initial thing. I was just trying to think if I am underrated. I know I'm underrating Justice.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm going to say this is pure recency bias at this point and actually put this below Justice. It just, there was more going on with the quandary that they built. And the things we were picking apart in this one about how they kept kind of trying to throw in urgency to force it into an issue that wasn't quite.
So you're looking at below while we both said above. So just let's look at the other episodes around.
Yeah, and this probably shouldn't be a deciding factor, but when I think of the sexiness of the episodes, Justice was very in your face, literally, because that's the first thing I think about. And this one was kind of, I mean, it was a very sexual episode, but
I think Beata was a more complex character than anybody in Justice. Which
because when I think of sexiness in the episode, I just think of all the girls running around with their butts hanging out.
So right above Justice right now is Encounter at Farpoint. Do we think this belongs below Encounter at Farpoint for sure?
I'm surprised Farpoint is that low.
Number 5 right now.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly. That's exactly.
I said I didn't know where Justice was.
I'm surprised it's that low. Number 5.
Justice is sitting at number 6, so it's halfway.
Well, I mean, that's not bad. Yeah.
No, it's not.
I know I didn't love Encounter at Farpoint, but
I like Q more than you guys, I guess.
I would watch this episode again if that's the.
Wait, I need to enunciate. I like Q more than you guys.
I think what would be fair right now is just putting it between Justice and Encounter at Farpoint based on Keith wanting it to go lower, Steven maybe wanting it to go a little higher. Yeah. I'm kind of divided. So I'd say let's put it at number 6 below Encounter at Farpoint.
That sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think recency bias certainly plays a part. It's hard to. There were definitely some flaws in this episode, and it's hard to remember the details of those other ones at this point.
Yep.
So next week we are going to watch 11001001. That's the name of the episode.
Is it a Bender episode?
The Enterprise docks at a starbase for repairs, where it is commandeered by a race of technologically linked aliens intent on using the vessel for their own purposes. I think it was last week's episode where they mentioned, we're going to go get our computer upgraded. Mm-hmm. And this is the computer upgrade.
I am very much looking forward to that.
I hate it. I don't like this alien race.
So it's not the Borg, then?
No.
They probably would say that.
There's a book series, I don't think it's still active, but a Star Trek book series that was like engineers at the Academy or back on Earth or whatever, and they had members of this race that like they always have to be paired and they complement each other. And it was
this is them?
Yeah. And then they killed one of them off in the book, so the mate was like left alone, and it was an interesting story, but I just don't like this alien race.
I'll have to find. I mean, there's a
very little short bald people.
I mean, there's a very good chance I haven't seen this one. If it's like the one right after Angel 1, because as I said, I mean, there might have been like a little swath of the season I didn't get to see.
Well, let me tell you some of the character names for guest characters next week. We've got one named 01. We've got one named 10. Okay. We've got one named 00. We've got another one named 11.
So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So not in that order, but 0, 1. Wait, what was it?
But I do, seeing the piano player, bass player, drummer, I do believe we get Will Riker playing in a jazz quartet or in a jazz band at the beginning of the episode. So that's good.
That is
the Binars. That's the alien race.
Oh my god.
Their minds work in binary code.
Oh man.
And Riker spends time on the holodeck in New Orleans jazz bar.
This is the selling point.
This sounds insane.
where he possibly falls in love with the beautiful Minuet, who is just a holodeck creation.
Oh God, I think I remember that.
Yep.
I remember Minuet from something.
Picard?
No, Riker.
Riker, okay. That's...
And just
One of
because
the
the
harpists.
IMDb has a longer description, then the warp containment
Jazz
field
harpist.
begins to fail, and Commander Data orders the evacuation of the ship, not realizing Riker and Picard are still aboard.
Oh man.
Wow.
So that's what we have to look forward to next week.
All right.
Not looking forward to it. Until then, live long.
And prosper, oh sweet elected one.
Wow.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?